team. Hey, Chewy. How are you, man?
Hey, man. How you doing? I like your Fonz impression, and I'm glad to see the return of the Winnie the Pooh hoodie. It's good.
I just thought I'm not even prepped. I'm doing something at the moment to send myself some prep, because normally we kind of do that, little chitty. How's your day been? How's this? How's that? And something happened to me today that I thought I'd email the picture through to myself, and then I can show y'all what happened to me. My phone basically spoke to me today, and I had to take a photo of it. So I'll email it to myself and tell you in a sec. But how are you, bro? What's going on? What's happening? What's a big day? How are your thumbs after a big day?
A big day of not being at work and playing video games all day. I did some housework. I play a game called War Thunder, and Destiny is another one that I'm quite fond of.
I played the first Destiny, if it's the same one. There's been a couple since that.
Did Destiny 2 now. There's a big expansion coming, so I'm trying to rush through all the content before that happens.
Yeah, I basically finished the first one, but I never played the second one. It's a good game, eh?
So when I worked for JB Hi-Fi up in Wellington, we all played it. We all played the first one. We'd get together on a Thursday night and do the raids and all of that sort of stuff. So when the second one was coming out, and it was coming out on instead of just PlayStation, it was coming out on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. And so we were all like, okay, cool. So we all need to get it on the same platform, right? Otherwise, this won't work. Okay, so we're all going to go for PC, right? Yep. We're all going to go PC. Awesome. Prefer playing on PC. I bought it on PC. Everybody else bought it on console. Fantastic.
You can't connect?
No, you can now, but at the time you couldn't. So everybody that was in this raid crew that we had all went off and joined other raid crews. So I'm just like, I'll just be Nigel No Mates now. Just do the solo content.
I did another new podcast this morning with Ursula Carlson. That'll be coming out in the next few weeks. I did a whole bunch of work around my house, and then I went and had lunch and was sitting in front of the television. And this is what I took a photo of it. This is what my watch told me.
Oh, good.
So if you're listening to the audio podcast, I have a picture up at the moment of my fat old wrinkly white wrist, and my watch telling me that my heart is showing signs of irregular rhythm, suggestive of, I guess it's arterial. No, it's not arterial. Arterial
fibrillation.
Yeah. So yeah, my watch.
So you got a wobbly ticker.
Yeah, my watch said to me, "Oh, you're about to die this afternoon," and I was like, it's a strange thing to see. So I phoned my doctor, and they were like, "Oh, these watches, why don't you come in and we'll check you out?" So I went in and they checked me out, and everything's fine. And you know what I thought it might have been?
Just a normal text message.
On the back of my watch, there's one hole there. That's the hole I used to be in.
Oh,
and then I had to make it a bit smaller. And just today, I've made it one lot smaller for a third time. And I wonder if on that middle one, it wasn't quite connecting well enough. And so it was a bit kind of, the watch was a bit kind of not quite making the contact it needed to tell me things. And everything's fine. But when your watch tells you you're having a heart attack, I'm being a little bit, OTT on purpose. And it's never done it before. You do kind of go, hang on, what's going on there? So that was and then I when I picked up my girlfriend from work, and then went to the doctors and had the nurses poke and prod me, and then they gave me an appointment. And it all worked out to be.
What was that pickup like? Get in the car, I'm gonna die.
No, I did the research, and this is what it said online when you Google Apple Watch, whatever that's called. It's called AF, arterial fibrillation. It says can be quite accurate in older people. And I went, what am I? Am I an older person or am I not an older person? They said, but for younger people, it can be as inaccurate as 34% right. So I'm like, oh, well.
Oh, good.
Obviously, I'm a younger person. That's official now. So, yeah, big day as well around the country. A big day in politics. Ratana, which is actually a really interesting story. Yeah, David's saying always paced. You know what I thought? I thought about that horrible, terrible story about the plumber in Dunedin that had myocarditis, and possibly if he had just gone and got it checked out, he likely would have been okay, like most people are. And I thought, I think I'd rather go and say g'day to a nurse if I don't need to, rather than go, she'll be right if you do need to. So that's sort of the philosophy. And I didn't need to, and she'll be right. So it's all good. It's all good. And then I came home and comforted myself in my Winnie the Pooh hoodie. So there. Yeah, Kim, I'm hoping I don't die either. But if I do, we'll start a GoFundMe, because that's apparently what you do now. I saw another one today about it. No, sad and horrible story. But it's like, it seems now when everybody dies, a GoFundMe is started. I'm not entirely sure where this is all started from. Maybe people don't do insurance anymore at all. But if you die, you do a GoFundMe to get money off other people because someone's just died. It's a strange thing. But if I do, we will. And then Chewy, I bequeath to you Big Hairy News and all its assets of.
Okay.
Okay.
No, that's good. I want to get it on the record as well, because there will have to be a GoFundMe for me. It'll be a cheap one though. We just need to buy a secondhand rowboat and maybe half a can of gas. Push me out to the harbour. Viking funeral on the cheap.
Yeah.
Probably need $50 if we could pass the hat round. That'd be good.
I wonder if you're allowed to do that. Are you allowed to do that in New Zealand? Like
it's not a
burial?
question of whether you're allowed to. Like, you catch my burning rowboat.
Right.
If it's happened, it's happened.
Yeah. All right. So Ratana's big news today, and what happened up there, and we're going to have a little bit of a look at a couple of news stories we're going to look at tonight, and then we're going to delve into the idea of co-governance, because it seems that we are now having this word bandied around again, and we've been told how bad it is by one part of the political spectrum, and up until this point, we've been told from the other political part of the political spectrum how essential it is. But I get the feeling that soon-to-be Prime Minister Hipkins might start to back away from it. And I just thought again today, what is it? Like, how actually we should make sure we know what it is before we start to say, is it good? Is it bad? Now, probably through the week, we might get some people to come on, have a bit of a chat about it in more depth. But what I've done is I've just gone and found a clip from a few months ago. I think it's on Q&A or The Nation, or one of those Sunday morning shows, with Debbie Ngarewa-Packer talking about what it is for Te Pāti Māori. And I thought that's a pretty good place to start. So we'll play that a little bit later on. But for now, I think we will start with Ratana, and we will start with a couple of stories about Ratana and how the day went for the political figures here. One of the things that's interesting about Ratana is that it's not really supposed to be uber political, but I think, as one of these reports says, basically in election year, any time you get an opportunity to speak, especially if you're in opposition, it becomes political. It's their selling point. So let's have a look. Here's the first story from News Hub around Ratana today. We're also going to play one from TVNZ. Then they're going to delve a bit more deeply into some of the stuff that Mr. Luxon said.
Magic on the par. And then an almighty challenge.
And we know in an election year, everyone, kahurirori. Everyone goes crazy. But it can't be a lolly scramble, Mr. Luxon.
One issue in particular.
Interesting that he's saying that it can't be a lolly scramble to Christopher Luxon, whereas that's the accusation often made at Labour about trying to win an election. And look, let's be honest, be honest and fair. Every incumbent government offers some kind of lolly scramble to win the next election. And people are like, they're just making this policy to get votes. And the answer to that is, yep. And both sides will do it. And it's always in that either second or third term where they've lost a lot of support. And there will be things offered this year that will be vote for us or you won't get this. And that's politics and how it works. And then when National's in, whether it's this year or in 3 years from now or whatever, when they're getting towards the end of theirs, they'll do the same thing, you know? So, I just thought it was interesting that the speaker at Ratana was kind of pointing to Christopher Luxon saying it's not to be a lolly scramble. What do you think, Chewy?
I would be surprised if there were any lollies in Luxon's pocket. I mean, there certainly are lollies. There's probably some quite big ones, but they aren't for us. they're special lollies for the special people
Yeah.
that already have a lot of lollies.
Yeah.
Of
And they
their
want
own.
some more. They've got enough.
Some of the public lollies.
They've got some sugar-coated lollies, and they want some jubes as well. All right, let's keep playing.
A flashpoint.
We welcome you to not be afraid of co-governance. We welcome you to not be afraid of loosening the grip of power.
National does oppose co-governance in the delivery of public services.
Ratana is a
So that's why we want to have a look at what is co-governance right now. Now, I know that probably most people out there have a pretty clear understanding because the people who watch and listen to us are pretty balanced, other than the odd YouTube commenter. And we understand that a term can be demonized, but the idea can be completely sound. But I just wanted tonight to maybe just have a look at it, especially have a look what Te Pāti Māori is saying about it, because as is the case often, I think it's important if you're using a Māori word that we should understand what Māori think that word means, being, well, it's a Māori word. And then at least we can then go, so if he's describing it as this and saying this is bad, what he's describing bad is no. So we'll get to that as we go through.
celebration of the movement and the game of politics is usually kept to a minimum. But today on the par, Luxon got stuck in.
And I would say to you, I think it has been quite a divisive and immature conversation over recent years. It's been immature and divisive because essentially the Prime Minister hasn't come forward, spent her huge political capital making the case to the New Zealand people and taking them with her on it.
Luxon refusing to accept any responsibility for the conversation he called immature, despite National's 2021 demand the debate campaign over co-governance.
It's your party. No, but if I go back and look at it's a new National Party under new leadership.
Speakers have also...
Okay, incredibly important point. Incredibly important point. And I'm disappointed that we couldn't find more on this in the media. News Hub doesn't have the scrum anywhere because I would have liked to have looked at more of that. Remember what Mr. Luxon was saying yesterday, right? That he was basically saying a new leader for Labour doesn't mean anything. Yet what he's saying about National today is that's not relevant because there's a new leader for National. So which is it? Is it that a new leader doesn't make old policies irrelevant, or is it that a new leader means it's a completely new direction? Because it's almost like Chewy, it's almost like it's one rule for them and one rule for us, and we're not going to be consistent on that. Chewy, I don't know if you saw that.
But
it's
you'd have to frame by frame that.
It's almost like them having a new leader doesn't change anything, but us having a new leader changes everything. I mean, maybe I'm
it's
wrong.
a whole new National Party. That was news to me under new management. But yeah, it's. Do you know what I read today? I put a link to the private chat, but you probably haven't seen it yet. Chris Finlayson, former National MP, and he was talking about co-governance because, of course, he was involved in treaty negotiations last time around.
Very successful at it as well.
Enormously successful. And I always point this out when this sort of stuff comes up, is that National had a lot of success in treaty negotiations. And people often either completely miss that or like, hang on, are we talking about the same National Party that we're talking about now? I'm actually going to put a link to it up into the chat because it was a really, really good read. And I just wanted to go, sorry, what party were you in again? Because you're not reading from the same choir sheet as everybody else is now. And it seems to me a real bummer that you've left.
Yeah. I just so you know, I'm always offended by any kind of religious analogies here, Chewy. Just make sure that you don't go too hard on those ones. I want to play this one more time. We've just played it. I've just skipped back a bit. Let's just now remember Christopher Luxon, and we're going to show a bit more detail as to what he said about it being divisive and immature. What he's saying is the conversation around co-government is divisive and immature, and we have nothing to do with that. So he's saying National has no part to play in the divisive and immature nature of this conversation. That's the point he's trying to make. And let's just watch again what was said.
On it.
Luxon refusing to accept any responsibility for the conversation he called immature, despite Nationals 2021 demand the debate campaign over co-governance.
It's your party. No, but if I go back and look at it's a new National Party under new leadership.
Speakers.
Little bit of no, we're new. You know, whereas yesterday it was they're the same old. You know, so we'll continue on. We are going to come back to this though, because I'm going to play some more from his speech, not just a clip out of here. Let's get to the end of the News Hub conversation.
Have also raised concerns about rising racism as politicians try to win all the votes they can.
There's a concerted effort for gaslighting, racism, gaslighting, misogyny, and it's got to stop.
If people want to introduce racism where you get different rights based on your ancestry, that is something we should all be opposed to.
I think that race relations should not be ever.
Remember, we've said it before, and we'll say it again. When the only place you are looking for equality in is based on race, then you are playing the race card. If you're not looking for equality based on the other protected classes under the human rights, be it age, sex, religion, you know, any of those other areas, if you're not looking to find equality and have it being exactly the same for everyone under those, and the only place, Mr. Seymour, you're looking to find it is in the area of race, then I'm sorry to be blunt, but it's racist, right? Forget all this. Well, you know, this they don't like us because of the color of our skin. It's like, actually, if the only policy you're trying to level out is one based on race, then that is racist. And that's his MO all the way through. And people watching now, it sounds really arrogant because it sounds like I think I'm the shit with that statement, but that I don't think there's a hole in that argument. And I think this is what we need to be screaming from the rooftops if we disagree and want to push back against the far right incursion into politics on a mainstream level by ACT and on other levels by smaller, even more disgusting parties. Chewy.
Yeah, look, my whole thing with he's trotted that line out a couple of times that, you know, and it, you know, if we do this on race, it's not fair. And I just want to go, dude, pick up a fucking history book. You can't just draw a line in the sand and then go, as of now, we're all equal. When you've had 100-year head start of taking all the land, disadvantaging people, taking their language away from them, all of that sort of stuff. In that Finlayson article that I linked, he's like, all you have to do is sit in the tribunal and listen to the things that the Crown did, and your mind automatically goes, oh, that's shithouse.
Yeah.
You know, oh God, the Crown did do some horrible things, and we've got to put it right. And it also absolutely disregards the founding document of this whole country.
Yeah, that's a big part. That's a big part of it.
He's trotting that out, and that needs to be the only answer. So you would give away the treaty. Like that, to me, it's whoa. You know, what is he thinking? But it makes a real, you know, it is a dog whistle to the people that are like, oh, those bloody Maoris, they're taking everything. You know,
speaking of the dog whistle,
really shallow understanding of what's going on.
Speaking of the dog whistle, and I'm pretty sure you saw my tweet today, Chewy.
Yes, I did.
Christopher Luxon started his speech, and I don't have it queued up. We could show it though. Speaking quite eloquently in Te better than me. You know, sounded great. Did it. You know, got to the end of it saying, you know, please forgive me for my clunkiness. Great. We've had the debate on this show before that every time he gets asked by a journalist or a broadcaster, kia ora, Mr. Luxon, he always goes, good morning, hello, good day. He says he's a student of Te Reo, but he never speaks it. Today he did, so credit where credit's due. However, the tweet I put out today basically said there'd be a backlash for him about speaking Te Reo because every right-wing party in the Western world today has to try and walk that line of not alienating the white supremacists I'm not saying everyone on the right is a white supremacist, but not alienating the white supremacists. There you go. Thanks, Joey. Because they need their votes. But in New Zealand's specific case, being able to keep Māori on board enough that maybe he'll have to form a party with Te Pāti Māori, or choose to, as John Key did, several years ago. So he's trying to walk this line of going, I can work with Māori whilst I'm shitting on the treaty and saying co-governance is a pile of crap, so I can try and have a foot in both camp. And it's, I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to work, they won't win. It's not going to work. People will see through it. They may still win, but it's like I would almost have more respect for him if he just went hardcore one way or the other. I wouldn't like it, but I might have more respect for him rather than the bullshit trying to actually, appease one side to get their votes whilst playing a race card to try and bring across 0.5% of the other votes.
Yeah, and I mean, he's made some statements previous about how he thinks people learning te reo is good, and it's a official language of the country, and people shouldn't be afraid of it. And then you've seen him kind of walk that back, and I feel like that's based on feedback. That maybe this isn't the boat for him to push out. And I just wish that both sides, like both the main parties, Labour and National, were like, this is maybe it's the one thing we agree on. But yeah, it is an official language of the country. We're both on the same page on this. We're going to move forward, and people will get used to it over time. It's fine.
I just thought you might want to see David Seymour's kissy face, his O face. That's his O face.
What you can't see in that freeze frame is that he's currently wearing neon shorts and twerking.
Stop it. I got enough trouble last night for my theatrics. Let's not do it again tonight. Something about the name of another politician just out of shot. No, we won't. Stop it. No. Right. So Chris Hipkins says something quite insightful here. Although I also think it's a little bit Pollyanna, and I don't see how it's going to work.
All be opposed to.
I think that race relations should not be ever used as an issue to divide New Zealanders with.
And do you think it has been used by some politicians to divide New Zealanders?
Certainly in the past it has been, absolutely.
Luxon's highly political speech was not designed for the audience here at
As in
Ratana.
14 minutes ago.
It was written and delivered for the New Zealanders at home, because when it's an election year, every opportunity is a political one. At Ratana, Amelia Wade, News Hub.
Yes, Chewy, any thoughts? We're actually going to play the TVNZ story as well, which is also covering Ratana. It's a slightly different angle. And then we're going to show some of Christopher Luxon's speech as well, just to make sure we have the full enema on the conversation today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Well, maybe it's coming up, maybe it's not. We don't know whether Three Waters co-governance, that sort of thing, it might be thrown into the chipper by Chippy. We just don't know yet. I hope that it isn't. But I feel like there's a lot of the stuff. I mean, election years always get ugly around this stuff. It's depressing every year that here we are so many years later. There's been so many strides forward as far as race relations and Māori over the last 30, 40 years. And then we're still bitching about this stuff. And I honestly feel like most people just get on with it.
Yeah.
I think I said in answer to your tweet today is like, whether we call New Zealand or whether we call it Aotearoa, I really don't think people think that that's a red hot button issue for them.
No, actually, sorry, I didn't even say that properly, did I? What I said in my tweet was that there'll be pushback because Luxon referred to New Zealand. First time I've ever heard him say it as Aotearoa New Zealand. Like, I've never heard him say that before. And that's the definition of pandering to the people in front of him. But as the reporter just said, the message he was sending to the people through the camera was no to co-governance. The pandering he did to people in front of him was calling it Aotearoa New Zealand. And the pushback he'll be getting online in some dark corners of the places that Chewy goes, but I don't, is how dare he call it Aotearoa New Zealand. And he's going to have to walk that line. We talked about Karen Plunkett a lot last year, about having to placate the anti-vaxxers that have flooded to that platform, whilst we know, and I think if you don't know, I know, and lots of people who know Karen Plunkett, know that they are not his beliefs, and a lot of the stuff he's espousing is a complete grift. And it's not his political position, a lot of the stuff he's putting out there. But he's going to get to a position, his dilemma, as we talked about last year, is once mummy and daddy's money runs out, is he going to continue down the path to be able to monetize the nutters that he's brought on board, or is he going to return to where he really thinks? Now, it's sort of the same. Luxon's dilemma, to coin a phrase, is how does he keep those alt-right, white supremacist, bloody Maoris, not the people who say that is what I mean, on board for their vote, while still kind of showing, I'm a leader in 2023, and I believe in greenhouse gases, and Māori is an important language. Like, how do you walk that line? And one thing you got to say about the left, as weak as they are in so many areas of delivering messages, at least their messages are pretty much consistent. Yeah. Right. Like you know where they stand. You're not going to get Marama Davidson flip-flopping on these two things. She's going to be, I'm paraphrasing in case Marama sees this. She's not going to be, there was very fine people on both sides. She's going to be, fuck you, white supremacists, paraphrasing. And, we must honor the treaty. You know where they're going to stand. And I think that's one of the differences I'm seeing in politics around the world at the moment. The right are trying to walk this line between keeping in the boat the disgusting pieces of shit, the river of filth people, yet still trying to play some kind of mainstream politics. And I think what we heard today from Mr. Luxon was a really, really small example of that. Nothing like good people on both sides about white supremacists, but it was in the same chapter of that book, if not on but I wouldn't say it was on the same page as that comment.
He'll mumble it. Seymour will yell it from the rooftops. But I mean, this is the thing that we've got to bear in mind, right? If it's a close election for either party, it depends on who their partners are. Yeah. Who the government negotiations go to. Natural partner for National is ACT, and if they have that balance of power of like, well, you can be government or you can't, you got to go with us. But one of their button issues is racism. We like it and we want more of it.
And remember, I think it was 2017. I'm happy to be fact checked on this, but it was one of the more recent elections. I think it was 2017, was decided by 41,000 votes in New Zealand. So think about that as a percentage of the population. And if Christopher Luxon can placate the alt-right white supremacists enough, like 1% of them, and kind of pitch to people who want to support the treaty enough because he speaks Te Reo, and that might give him the 50,000 votes that if it was a close one would get them over the line. All right, let's have a look at the TVNZ article. Here we go.
The Prime Minister and the Prime Minister in waiting. Ratana traditionally marks the start of the political year. This time, it's the end of a chapter for Jacinda Ardern.
If you're going to leave, I say leave with a brass band.
I was just thinking that brass band is fly. Yeah.
Prime Minister wasn't planning on speaking today. She had a very good line. I don't think it's in this. I think I watched her speech where maybe it is in this. Maybe I'm just about to tell you what she's about to say. But she says, I wasn't planning on speaking, but she basically says, you guys wouldn't allow me to be here without speaking, which is kind of interesting. She's got a very special relationship with Ratana. It's where she basically announced that she was pregnant with Neve. And when she announced it a few years ago, Māori who were there kind of offered her as a gift a Māori name for Neve. I don't know if she took it as a middle name or anything, but it was sort of nice. So I think that she was sort of welcomed back as in someone who's had a special moment there, and it's almost like her sending off was there today, because tomorrow the leadership change is over.
It's her last outing as PM and marks the changing of the guard.
You are in the best of hands. You knew me as Auntie. I hope you know him as Chili. Because it speaks to who he is as a person. Personable, down to earth.
Tomorrow morning, she'll sign off.
How relieved are you? I would hate for anyone to view my departure as a negative commentary on New Zealand. I've experienced such love, compassion, empathy and kindness when I've been in this job. That has been my predominant experience.
her colleagues pausing to reflect.
It surely is. This whole period's been very emotional. As I say, I've worked very closely alongside Jacinda over the last 5 years, and she's my friend, and I know how much being Prime Minister has meant to her. It's been tough for everybody, and yeah, I'm a mate, so of course I'm going to feel it.
It's a bittersweet moment. Obviously, I'm really honoured to be taking on the role. But yeah, as well known, Jacinda's a very good friend of mine, and so it was nice to be able to be here with her.
I think it's quite poignant, given the relationship that Labor has with Ratana.
The ingoing and outgoing leaders travelled together, so there were 2 hours to debrief in the car.
Probably the most important advice I gave him was, you do you.
Jacinda Ardern first came to Ratana in 2018 when she was pregnant and was offered a Māori name for Neve. She returned 2 years later with an energetic toddler. People today keen to celebrate this special relationship.
She's done well with the country. Had a few hiccups, but she cleaned it up.
Oh, she's done an awesome job. Yeah, she's done an absolutely awesome job.
Probably in my opinion, been one of New Zealand's best leaders.
Jacinda Ardern will stay on as the MP for Mount Albert until April, so there's no by-election.
Are you ready to be a backbench MP again?
Yes, I am. I'm ready to be lots of things. I'm ready to be...
Can you imagine that actually what's in her head is, fuck yes.
Sit at the back and read a book.
Yeah, I'll Candy Crush for the next few months.
A backbench MP. I'm ready to be a sister and a mum.
Oh, thanks, Sam.
She's stepping out of the cut and thrust of politics, and from tomorrow, he's on his own.
And Jess is with us now.
There you go. I also think, and I hadn't thought of this before now, people are saying that the middle name for Neve was Te Aroha. So there you go. Maybe that was the name she was offered. We just did it same time there, Chewy. I won't touch it. You want to put it back up? So that obviously it was taken. The other thing about this, which is an interesting, and I didn't think about it till just now, is the different angles that TV3 and TVNZ took with this article. TVNZ kind of took the outgoing Prime Minister. TV3 was all about sort of Luxon and the division and co-governance. Now, I'm sure TVNZ did cover that, right? This is just one of their articles, and I'm playing it off YouTube. But particularly interesting to see how each of the bulletins started slightly differently on the main story to come out of Ratana today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think history will see Jacinda Ardern as one of our best ever prime ministers, because what will happen is the noise, the disgusting, repugnant, revolting noise, the misogyny, it'll
fade away.
The nastiness will fade away, and it's going to be like, what do you remember about that term? And it's not going to be, people accusing Jacinda Ardern of working with Bill Gates and yada, yada, yada. It's going to be, we were leading the world in our COVID response, and we had more freedoms than anyone in the world for a good long time. And yes, while COVID finally won that overall battle of infecting people, New Zealand won the battle of death. Meaning, if you look at the stats around the world of countries like, I think it's Sweden, USA, places that didn't really shut down, the numbers of COVID infections have become similar per capita, but the numbers of deaths are exponentially lower in New Zealand and Australia and places that followed that line. And as difficult as it was for some people, and no criticism if you're someone who differs in this, for some people to make some decisions sometimes around that whole situation. If you chose your political ideology over your job, fair call. It's your call you made. But I think history will show, in my opinion, that she'll be held up like some of the greats as a prime minister for this period. She's basically been, on some level, a wartime prime minister. Very different kind of conflict, but it's that kind. That's why they got a majority. And we can't deny that only prime minister under MMP to get a majority, that can never be taken away. That kind of says without question that at least in that moment, the most successful prime minister to be elected, because no one else has got a majority. So you kind of, if you're playing the ball on its merits, you got to give credit where credit's due, even if you disagree with the position that this government took on from time to time.
I also I saw a great series of tweets from, I forget who it is now, but basically was saying Jacinda will be remembered from her international impact as well. And that's the thing, the media overseas and her flying the flag for New Zealand, I guess, is completely divorced by all the little criticisms that we have here at a domestic level. Every criticism of your government's inaction on the various problems we have aren't seen by those people overseas.
Right.
They just saw a youngish woman getting elected, dealing with the mosque shooting, dealing with White Island, dealing with the COVID response, having a kid in the middle of all of that.
Yeah.
And standing up at the UN and doing all of that big stuff as well.
And also,
everybody's chipping away at it.
But there's also
the people overseas.
There's also that angle, and because of what, and let's not fangirl too much after Jacinda, but let's just say this government, because of all those things and how they all responded, the profile that she had around the world, not just in the political world. A silly example is, that Stephen Colbert did a monologue on her when she announced her retirement. Barack Obama tweeting out about these people, about her, but it's a little bit like, a lot of people will take a Queen's birthday honor or King's birthday honor now. And one of the reasons they take it is because it directly reflects on the people that these people have been involved with. So, I spoke to Michelle Acore over the holidays about her honor. And I was like, comedians are often like, oh, I can't be too, I need to be an outsider. And Michelle was very clear, as are many who take those awards, that it's not actually about them. It's about the work done with and around them. And it's honoring it all, even though if they're the name on their award. It's the same with Jacinda and the world thing. I think that the level of esteem she was held in by many outside the realms of politics is actually a reflection on New Zealand. It's good for us, whether it's whether it's a celebrity or whether it's a politician or whether it's a musician or whether it's whoever it is, it actually reflects well on New Zealand. And now stop and think. Everybody stop and think. Close your eyes and just picture Christopher Luxon getting any of that kind of publicity for New Zealand. Can you visualize anything ever like that ever happening? Not a criticism, because it's not, because if you can't do it, you can't do it. But just think about what she gave when it comes to profile for the country versus what's going to happen from now on, whoever it is.
I don't think I have to imagine, because it's going to be John Key 2.0. Now, although it's going
to be unlikable John Key 2.0.
Well, yes, I don't think Luxon's. Well, I didn't really like John Key, but lots of people did.
Lots of people did.
And he did speak to Middle New Zealand quite well, but he didn't have that impact outside of the country. I don't think that Jacinda has had. I had someone sort of going, well, look at the articles that are and the pieces that are written about Jacinda's resignation and compare that to when John Key resigned. But very, very different. I mean, it was a different world, but
if you remember nothing else from tonight's show, remember this next thing we're going to talk about, because there's an old, ancient Hebrew saying that talks about a clanging cymbal. I might as well be a clanging cymbal. I'm paraphrasing. What that means is if we just make noise like a clanging cymbal and it never lands anywhere, what's the point, right? There's no point being a clanging cymbal. I've seen something in Christopher Luxon's speech that no one else has picked up on yet, right? And it's really based around two things. It's based around co-governance, and it's based around this repetitive thing that we're hearing from both ACT and National, that we all have to be treated the same. We have to provide, I was going to say outreach, it's the wrong word. We have to provide, government agencies have to provide equally to everyone. Would that be a fair summation about what ACT and National have been saying? They're like, government agencies must treat everyone the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They haven't been ever.
No, but that's what they're saying. However, Christopher Luxon doesn't actually believe that. And he showed us in his speech today that he doesn't believe that. Like, I'm not paraphrasing. I'll play it for you, and if you miss it, I'll explain it to you.
And the final thought for you is that we believe in localism and devolution. We don't believe in centralisation and control like this government. We think that there are three actors in society. There is government setting up the framework, local and central. There is community and iwi organisations and Māori organisations that see the pain, the hurt, the frustration and the need and are best to deliver a lot of those services and to improve the outcomes. And we see businesses that can play a role and move with great speed and scale.
So, you may have missed it because
I was talking about devolution.
I've been reflecting on this all of the afternoon. Mr. Luxon just said there the three areas of government, right? And the second one was community, iwi, and Māori. Who the fuck do you think iwi and Māori are providing services to?
Yeah.
No. You're laughing, Chewy, because when you say it like that, it's so obvious. In his speech, he just said within government, there needs to be areas set up in the community for iwi and Māori. Who the fuck do you think they're providing services for? They're providing services for iwi and Māori. And then in a minute, he's going to go on to how co-governance is not the case and we should be all the same, we should all be treated the same, and there should be no special treatment for everyone. And he has just literally said the way this works well is when things are set up in community, when things are set up for iwi, when things are set up for Māori. I'm going to skip back a bit and see if I can find where it was. And I'll play the whole that little bit for you again. Okay, just have a listen. Now, remember, on one hand, he's been telling us, and ACT as well, everyone the same for services. No one special, especially not around race. And now he's saying the best way it works is if there's areas set up for iwi and Māori. So, okay, no one else saw this. No one else has chosen to pick up on Mr. Luxon going, you said, Mr. Luxon, that special areas for iwi and Māori are the best way for a government to function. This is incongruent. This is not working. I'm going to play it again.
That there are three actors in society. There is government setting up.
Oh, don't do this tonight.
It's doing it. It's doing the thing again.
No, it's going to do this, and then I'll just skip forward to 6:35.
He honore ki te atua.
Oh, let's play as Māori as our intro because it was credit where credit's due. That's on 360. It should easily get there. It's not going to do it for us, is it? I'm sorry about this. Look, if once we get the funding to get a producer, we will definitely get them to actually edit the stuff and get it ready. Right. So we'll come back to that. Chewy, I'll give you a chance to respond first of all. That's buffering, and then we'll come back to it. Buffering. What do you think about what I just said? Because I think it's like a slam dunk obvious once you see. I mean, I'm just saying what he said, nothing else.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I latched onto the fact of talking about devolution, and obviously he's talking about the government making big entities like Three Waters, like the getting rid of the district health boards and stuff like that. But they're coming at it from very different points of view. Like I think the government has been trying to do those things from a point of view of scale and efficiency, while at the same time acknowledging Māori. And maybe just the rubber stamp way of doing everything isn't working. I think those things are part and parcel. But then Luxon seems to agree with that idea that maybe a Māori health authority is a good idea because who knows more about Māori than Māori? That sounds great. And then steamrolls on to the next point, which is like no co-governance. Isn't that just what you described?
Yeah, but this is that, and that's the point. And I think what embarrasses me about mainstream media, what embarrasses me about political reporters is no one has yet gone. So like if the people group is breast cancer, is it okay to treat and fund and pay for people with breast cancer, because that's their need? Yes. Good. Okay. So we can have criteria based on need. What if that criteria based on need is a race? Like, what if it's very obvious that within this race of people, there is a problem? Is it okay to provide funding to help based on race if it's proven that that is an area of need? And if the answer is no, then to me, it's the same as breast cancer or prostate cancer or people with broken legs, an area of need that needs to be fulfilled, whether it's a medical need based on a broken leg or whether it's a medical need based on race. And that can happen because, I mean, all we need to do is look at the average life expectancy of Māori versus non-Māori, and there is stuff going on. Something needs to be provided to that group of people who are living 9 years fewer number of years than the rest of us.
Maybe that's the answer to dealing with Seymour's bullshit. Is going, it's not based on race, it's based on need.
But that's what we've been saying for a year.
Oh, absolutely. And nobody's calling on it. You know, there's two aspects of it. There's what the treaty actually is and what it stands for and how we're addressing that now. And there's the fact that because we haven't been following those things that we should have been in the treaty, you know, Māori have been disadvantaged from the get-go at every stage of society for over 100 years.
It's I did this conversation on Today FM over the holidays, and someone phoned up and we were talking about something, and I said, are you impacted by the finances of your father? And the person went, yes. I went, do you think he's impacted, your father, by the finances of your grandfather? And they said yes. I said, what about his grandfather? Yes. And I went, okay, so now you're back to about 1890. What about his grandfather? Yes, correct. So when the wealth was controlled, and we were actually talking about slavery in the US at the time, because it's much easier, because what happened with slavery at the time in the US it was the UK, sorry, is what happened is a bunch of people in the UK who had slaves, the government actually gave them money for their slaves, and that's one of the ways they got released. So there are still people in the UK today financially better off for having sold their slaves into freedom that the government paid them for. So there is still wealth today. It's a really easy way to see it, because it's like slavery gone, day finished, over, money, and then the slaves, what they got was their freedom, which is amazing, but they then had nothing to start with, and the slave owners had the equivalent of $20 million to start off with. So of course, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations on, it's very likely, statistically speaking, that one side is going to be beneficial, one side is going to be in a detrimental situation from that starting point. Now bring that to New Zealand, it's not quite as black and white and cut as dry as that, because the treaty and the negotiations and land that was bought and land that was taken, it's not as black and white. But when people who had 2, 3, 4 generations ago, whether it was control, whether it was money, whether it was the vote, any of these things, their children benefited from it, their children benefited from it, their children benefited from it, and that is what systemic issues is about.
Yeah,
I have a house today, right, because of my father. My father had the capacity to lend us, and we paid it back, but lend us $35,000 to buy our first house. If he hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't have a house today. My kids, if I was to drop dead of a heart attack tonight, my kids are going to have hundreds of thousands, probably, certainly 100, probably 5 figures each. Might be a low 5 figures, but have 5 figures each in their bank because of my father. Right? That's what systemic issues are, generational issues. So not like Shaquille O'Neal wealth, but there's wealth in my family because of those that went before me. If someone who went before me in your family couldn't afford to buy a house, it's going to be 10 times harder for you to be in that position. Not impossible. And so when they roll out these people and they go, well, look, he pulled himself up from the bootstraps, fucking amazing, good on you. But statistically speaking, it's more probable that those who generationally came from places of power and wealth will have generations after them that continue in areas of power and wealth, right? That's what systemic issues are about, whether it's racism, whether it's wealth inequality, whatever it is. And it's very easy to think about, how well did I benefit from my family? I wonder how well they benefited from their family and from their family. And like I said, my dad was born in 1940, which means his dad was born in the early 1900s, which means my dad's grandfather was born in the late 1870s, which means my dad's great-grandfather was probably born around the time of the treaty. You don't have to go back very far to go shop owner, son continues that shop, son buys 2 shops, son owns Woolworths. It doesn't take very much to get there.
No.
Sorry for the rant. I'm done.
It was a good rant. No, like we are a very young country. It doesn't take you very long to go back at all. But I mean, when you look at early colonial history and that sort of thing, there's a big switch. You know, the reason that we signed a treaty is because Māori outnumbered Europeans. And then we got the signatures on the thing, and we did some trading, and it was all good. And we're definitely going to stick to the thing. We're definitely going to stick to the thing. And oh, whoops! All of a sudden, we outnumber you. We're taking all the land, and there's a war going on. Oh well! And then, like at that point, every aspect of New Zealand society was copy pasted from Europe. Our
Down
schooling,
to the fucking
judiciary,
hedgehogs.
you know, we made it Little England.
Yeah.
And we terraformed this place, and every structure, like when people talk about a white supremacist, you know, you say white supremacist, I think a lot of people think Nazis and skinheads. No, just take the two words of what they mean. It was the dominant culture here, and all of our structures of our society were European. And then you're Māori, and you look around and you go, well, there's huge swathes of the land that my ancestors lived on. They're all farms now. I don't have access to those. Everything is set up to make me a failure.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and yes, there are some people that can overcome that. And yes, there are success stories. But the overall systemic thing is to put one people above another, and that is what our country is. So when Seymour talks about everything should be equal, we're a long way from equal. There's a lot of redress and a lot of adjustment before we're ever at that point.
Yeah. All right. I'm hoping this is going to play now, because the second part of this conversation, it's only 45 seconds I've taken out, is him talking about co-governance, and then we're going to go have a chat. We're not going to physically have a chat. We're going to play something from Debbie Ngārawapaka answering the question, what is co-governance?
Society. There is government setting up the framework, local and central. There is community and iwi organisations and Māori organisations that see the pain, the hurt, the frustration and the need, and are best to deliver a lot of those services and to improve the outcomes. And we see businesses that can play a role and move with great speed and scale. Three actors with complementary but different expertise that need to work together, partner together in order to deliver improved outcomes.
So partnering together with Māori and iwi. So
Sounds
these areas, yeah, they sort of want to cohabit. They want to kind of govern. They want to work together. And he mentioned Māori and he mentioned iwi.
Sounds really good.
Working together. They've got to work together in somehow. You know, it's like Māori, iwi working together with these other I guess, non-Māori ways of doing things. I wish we had a word for that, Chewy. I wish we had a word for that.
Maybe we get some
So I
consultants.
guess that thought of localism and devolution brings us to the big topic of the day and of the last few years, which has been that word co-governance. And I would say to you, I think it has been quite a divisive and immature conversation over recent years.
Which we've got nothing to do with.
And I personally think it's because the government hasn't been upfront or transparent with the New Zealand people about where it's going and what it's doing. And I believe in constitutional issues, you actually spend your political capital, you make your case, and you take people with you.
I tend to agree with that point. So we're making our case that Christopher Luxon thinks that there should be like cooperation, you know, between Māori, iwi, and all those other kind of non-Māori world, but we definitely shouldn't have co-governance, right? And the problem with co-governance is that Labour haven't done well enough explaining it. So actually, so the concept of it, yeah. So that does bring up the question: what is co-governance? Let's go and have a look. It's not this is not a long clip, and it's from 9 months ago. So I was just looking at the date there. But Debbie Ngārawapaka on whatever this program is called, News Hub Nation, just gets asked that exact question. So let's have a look what Te Pāti Māori say it is.
Yes. All right. So what does co-governance look like to Te Pāti Māori?
Well, I think, and I've got to say, from Te Pāti Māori's perspective, we will always tautoko the document of Te Tiriti, which is about tino rangatiratanga and mana motuhake, which is, very much about self-determination, hiwa noa, in the best interest of Aotearoa and Tiriti-centric Aotearoa. It is about sharing strengths. Sorry, plane going over me at the moment. It is about sharing strengths. It is about, and we do it already. And the latest example is to look at the COVID response, the way that we see isolation and tautoko going out for whānau. It is about sharing the best of our strengths together. And I think that's what's frightening. People like those that support ACT, because these are basis of power sharing. These are basis of bringing in strengths from other cultures, which I guess is intimidating for those who have had commercial gain from one culture and one cultured approach.
Debbie, your mana.
I won't say that. Thoughts, Chewy, because it sounds like she was kind of saying, Māori and non-Māori working together. And maybe non-Māori understanding that those advantages that they've had over the past generations, it's okay, and they don't have to be worried about giving up some of that control for the betterment of everybody. That's the vibe I got from it.
Yeah, look, she's very good at explaining things, and it just goes every time I see someone from Te Pāti Māori, I'm impressed. Debbie and Rawiri are very, very good. Yeah, I don't see why it's something to be afraid of. I'm certainly not afraid of any of this. I have great difficulty getting to a place where I understand what people are scared of, whether it's changing the names on road signs or maybe let's not name this town after a land war bloody massacre or something like that, someone who did a spicy war crime.
Spicy.
Yeah. There's something happening up north. Someone keeps they've renamed the town of Maxwell, who was named after a colonial sergeant who killed a whole bunch of kids. And someone's gone, maybe we could have this town revert back to its traditional Māori name. And for some reason, the sign keeps disappearing or keeps getting vandalized.
Strange, weird.
Yeah, there's a local MP in the area that's been on Counterspin Media. I'm sure that's got nothing to do with anything. So, yeah, I mean, I'm talking in the chat. There was a comment there. Did I not start? Oh, here we go. Dean said, "I can't believe we're still having this conversation. Is this the 1980s?"
Hang on. Sorry, this is only because I'm a stickler for being articulate. But what specific conversation is he referring to when we say this? Because we've talked about all sorts of things.
I think of race relations is how I took that. And the treaty and how Māori fit in society and all of that sort of stuff. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dean. And it's just I often think back. I'm over 40 now. It's got markedly better in my lifetime, I think. And it has been a long, slow, painful experience, and it will continue to be so. But I think there are steps forward. Bit by bit, people get used to stuff. People reevaluate when new information comes to hand. Different things will be taught in schools. Kids don't care about a lot of this stuff. It's the world that they grew up in, and it gets better inch by inch. But people have to fight, and there's a lot of hurt there. And so, hurt brings anger. And then anger for some people is like puts you on the defensive. So, we're getting there. We're just going to keep going.
I think in that news, one of those news articles tonight, Debbie actually, again, talked about gaslighting. And I can't think of a better word when Mr. Luxon, in his speech, talked about sort of cooperation amongst these groups that he identified, one of which being Māori, one of which being iwi, and working together. Yet then, within 30 seconds, came out against co-governance,
Got to get back on message,
which is working together, right? And actually not just working together, but based on this original contract that the country has. So I honestly can't see any other. I don't use the term gaslighting very often because I think it's one of those words that gets overused. But to say, it's like saying, you know, my favorite color is blue. My favorite color is blue. My favorite color is blue. And then getting this hat out and go, ugh, I'd never wear that. I hate the color. You know, that's kind of feels like that. It's like, this is how this country needs to function. Cooperation, working together, you know, these groups, these entities working for the good of everyone. Yet co-governance, go fuck yourself. It just other than gaslighting, I can't think of another word. Maybe idiocy. Like if he genuinely doesn't know the connection, that seems pretty obvious to me. Maybe idiocy would be the other option, but idiocy or gaslighting are the two things.
Yeah. No, it just seemed like, I noticed he was reading from cards and stuff like that, and I just wonder if he got these cards mixed up with David Seymour at some point and just saying all of these things about all the good things that we can do with Māori, and then the next card was like, now do a racism, back on message.
I wonder, it does make me think, we've got a long time to go before the election, but it does make me think about, you know, National's got one partner, and it makes me think about New Zealand First. Very quiet at the moment, New Zealand First. But I can't imagine New Zealand First supporting Labour, although we've heard that before. And I know what the National Party message is going to be this year. It's going to be a vote for New Zealand First, potentially could be a vote to keep Labour in. I don't believe that for a second. I don't think that they'll go with Labour, although maybe now, I don't know, that's an interesting thought actually, as I think out loud. This is called thinking live on the internet. Because now that there is a new Prime Minister, I wonder if that will change anyone's view on who they could work with. Like, could Winston Peters work with Chris Hipkins?
Yeah, you said his name once there.
Yeah, three times. 3 times makes him turn up in the mirror.
Yeah, you say it 2 times and you say it once by accident, and he turns in a puff of tobacco smoking whiskey.
But I cannot see. In fact, when the Māori Party went with National last time, it was detrimental to them because then they went and lost all the seats to Labour. So their voters didn't like it. So I can't imagine Te Pāti Māori going with National, even in a supply and confidence agreement, if they don't need them. Obviously not the Greens. I can't imagine Labour. And so it kind of feels like National and ACT need to get there by themselves, or you could see another term led by Labour. I think it's the least likely option, but I don't think it's a slam dunk yet for the centre right. I think they're in the driver's seat. They're in the driver's seat.
It's going to be a fight.
Yeah. And if Luxon keeps telling everyone that Māori should work with everybody, then all his voters are going to run off brand. All right. Is there anything in the text? I start a few in there as well. Is there anything we want to mention before we wrap up for the night?
Let's start at the bottom. Carl says, this is obviously in reference to Ardern. I'm not sure we'll ever see the popularity she had to do Zenith both locally and internationally. She was helped by the contrast with other leaders like Trump, Bojo, and Bolsonaro. Very true.
Yeah, because
even over in Australia, actually.
Yeah, all the Americans were like,
show.
Look at this orange-skinned orangutan we've got. If only we could have that lady from New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. So yeah, no, that's very true. I think we do see locally her height of popularity, and I think that was the election. Only Prime Minister to ever get a majority government under MMP. So I think we can see that, but perhaps you're right about the internationally they'll never really see. We'll never really see it, but yeah.
Jane Powell agrees with you. Yes, I think you're right, Pat. Time will treat her well for sure.
Yeah, I think that's true. I can't see how it would be anything else. I mean, there can be, because the people who make noise, I mean, you think back to World War II, say, for example, like 90 years ago, 80 years ago, it's like I'm sure that Winston Churchill did some horrific things and was hated by a percentage, but what do we think about 80 years later? It's got nothing to do with that stuff. It's only the good things he did to help.
Oh, Winston Churchill was a bastard.
Yeah, but
he was an absolute bastard.
But we think about, and I'm not saying we're kind of whitewashing history. It's like the important things are the things that stay. Like it's like Steve Jobs was an absolute prick, right? and he was an absolute tyrant, probably narcissistic, but he made this thing in the 70s and 80s that changed the world in the Apple personal computer. And what he'll be remembered for, what he is remembered for, is when you pick up this, the iPhone, that's his legacy, is the iPhone, not that he was an absolute prick to his designers because they got the font wrong.
Yeah, no, Winston Churchill, for England, he was the right person at the right time. For the rest of the world, very, very bad. Horrible things in India, gassed Arabs as a way of just getting them to calm down a little bit. And my favorite Winston Churchill fact is after World War II, when he did his little victory lap of the colonies. Do you know where he didn't go?
Where?
Australia and New Zealand, because there's still
bastard.
enough Anzacs alive that they were scared that there'd be rifles in every window because
Wow.
we hadn't forgotten Gallipoli.
Right.
More comments. We got one from Stephen here. Co-governance was implemented with the key government was in power. Chris Finlayson was the architect of this, or did I read the article wrong? I don't think you read it wrong. I don't think you read it wrong. And I think it's important to look at that shift. Because I don't think, one of National's big successes, as we said earlier in the show, was that they were enormously successful in settling treaty claims, more than any government had done, I think, up to that point. I don't think they've been beaten there.
Yeah.
Kim here has a good idea for Mr. Luxon, a sign that says, "Please be patient, new employee." just put it on a suit. Cookie here again. This is referring back to us talking about Chris Finlayson from earlier. Chris is an interesting guy. First outwardly LGBTQ member of National, which is something that I didn't know.
That he was the first, or that he was in the community?
Well, I didn't know. I didn't know that he was gay or that sort of thing. Obviously wasn't made much noise about it. But I didn't see anything about it. But yeah, I love that when you find out that there's a National Party member that isn't a complete demon, but you find out after he's left.
Yeah, like we had Chester Burrows last year. Remember that conversation where he basically said National's plan, the Chester Burrows, a former Minister for Police, saying that the current national plan for gangs is ridiculous and will never work, and we've tried it before. So it's a bit like all the people in the US, all the Republicans in the US that all of a sudden are coming out against Trump and just bit their tongues for the 4 years he was in. But now that they're leaving, they get the courage to actually speak out against him. The Liz Cheneys of this world, but
a couple of other interesting comments here from Paul. If Luxon really wanted to stamp his unique stance on as a national leader and prove he's different, he wouldn't gift Epsom to ACT. I don't think he'll have the chance to do that, but yes, that would be amazing. It's always made me laugh that a party that's so anti-beneficiary is the beneficiary of a free seat.
Well, and they also talk about, taking responsibility and, outcomes and, everyone have
pull
personal,
yourself up by the bootstraps.
Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. I think also that, to be honest, I don't think the demographics do it now, but equally, and this is why National and the right in general play politics better. I mean, the left should have been canvassing and in there to vote for Paul Goldsmith. Like every Labour supporter in Epsom should have voted for Paul Goldsmith. And there was certainly at least one election where ACT wouldn't have got in. I don't know if that's still the case now, but yeah, they don't. But the left doesn't do politics very well. They don't do elections very well. And that's what makes it close a lot of the time.
No, good chat. Good chat.
Look it up now. Epsom election results. Let's see what it actually says for last time round. Epsom election results. This is good live streaming.
It's good that it's got a soundtrack.
2020. So look. So So there you go. So there's more votes. Just Labour voters voted for Labour, right? National voters voted for Paul Goldsmith. That's 16,600. 3,100 for the Greens, Seymour wouldn't have been in. So if they could get their act together, morons on the left that don't know how to play politics, there's enough votes amongst those three to get rid of ACT, but they can't do it. They don't know what they're doing. Now, no matter what you tell a voter, they may not do it. In fact, you'll probably also find that there were plenty of, maybe there was National Party people there who voted for the Labour person or something to try and negate any that were going the other way. But it's I hate this left wing kind of going, we're not going to play that game whilst the right are doing it, because that's the game of politics. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anywho, I think we're done. Anything else before we shoot off from those lovely people who are watching with us tonight?
No, I think we have covered off all the good stuff. Yeah, really appreciate the chat. This has been some really good points. Yeah. I love the chat.
Yeah, I don't. I hate the chat. Hate it with a passion, and anyone who uses it, I disdain vehemently.
Don't listen to him, chat. You are loved and appreciated by your Uncle Chewy. Almost none of you are going into the camps that I will have to set up when I take power.
All right, guys, that's us. We're done for tonight. Appreciate your time. Remember, if you want to be involved with what we do, we have a Patreon set up. I'm not going to push that tonight, but also probably what you can do even more importantly is tell people about us, share our stuff, be our advocates. I didn't do any clips today because I was doing a different podcast. I'll probably be doing some clips tomorrow. A couple of good rants in there the last couple of days. Yeah, hate you guys. No, that's not fair, mate. Hate me is fine because I see it. I love Chewy. Like Chewy is the beloved. Don't you just want to look at Chewy's face? Look at that face. Don't you just want to grab it and give it a cuddle? It's like, that's it, isn't it? You know what it is. What's that t-shirt? That hoodie you're wearing? No FX.
No FX. No, you don't know what No FX is.
Nope.
Okay, it's just a seminal California punk band. They've been around for almost 40 years.
You can't take anything seriously calling it seminal. I'm sorry, Chewy. It's
seminal.
Seminal?
So, all right. Here's a little. It's tangent time. It's tangent time.
I was gone.
You were gone, and then you had to bring something up. It's your own fault.
Okay.
So, what's one thing that you can say about punk music? Usually, really, really short songs, right? Less than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So this band have an amazing song which you should go and listen to that is 18 minutes long. And it is epic. You will forget that time exists. It's so good. And it's called The Decline. And even if you're not a punk fan, just do me a solid. Go listen to The Decline because it's great.
Just quietly as well, there is a bunch of bannings happening tonight in the chat. There's one of them. Someone's going to get banned there. There's another one. People are going to get banned left, right, and center. So, because you can't say horrible things like that. It's not going to happen.
It's hate. No, it's a love crime.
I love crime. All right, I'm not going to talk to Chewy anymore because he'll go off on another tangent. Thank you, team. We'll catch you tomorrow night from whatever time we do this now, 9 o'clock, for another edition of Big Hairy News. Chewy, thank you. Love you to bits. Thank you for being here, and we will catch you all tomorrow night from 9 for another edition. Hooroo. We'll see you then. Catch you later. Bye.